So today I'm going to be responding to the Revenge of the Dreamers video on why feminism is ruining movies. In this video, Revenge of the Dreamer is pointing out how feminism and SJW nonsense have had a negative influence in movies such as Star Wars. Before I start the video, I just want to point out that I am actually a fan of Revenge of the Dreamer. I enjoy his videos, I watch them daily, and I'm sure if we had a chance to talk to each other, we would probably find that we have a lot of common ground. I also don't think that Revenge of the Dreamer is a sexist or a racist. Just because you don't like forced diversity or any sort of diversity quota does not mean that you are in any way a racist or sexist or bigoted. Now, without further ado, let's begin.
What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So I was inspired to make this video after seeing The Last Jedi, the new Star Wars movie. Now if you haven't seen the movie and you are worrying about spoilers, I'm not going to really spoil the movie, just talk about some things I didn't like with the movie and just some directions that films in general are taking. And if you don't even care about Star Wars, I'm going to do a good job, like I said, explaining what I see problems with without really...
Just a warning, because of the nature of this video, there will be some minor spoilers in my response. I'll try to keep it as spoiler free as possible, but I am gonna have to talk about the plot a little bit and the story of Star Wars The Last Jedi, so please, warning, minor spoilers ahead.
I want to consider this kind of like a follow-up to my Why Diversity is Ruining Movies video, which you can watch down here. Not only because this movie also had forced diversity, but in general it has that tinge of social justice that seems to be infiltrating all our movies nowadays. Now when The Force Awakens came out 2 years ago, it was already seeping into cringy territory when we had the head of Lucasfilm under the new Disney label after it was bought out from George Lucas. She came out and said that, we need to have more strong female characters. And she made sure to tell us, that diversity was her, number one priority. Now she says this as if the original Star Wars movie didn't feature Princess Leia, an iconic female character who was beautiful yet badass. And in general, we have these female producers try to pull this revisionist history saying that we never had strong female leads in movies before, as if I didn't remember growing up with Ripley from Alien and Sarah Connor from Terminator. What made those characters great wasn't just because they were female, it's just they were strong, badass leads and they just happened to be female, and that's what seemed to be the goal before, but that's not so much the case anymore. So we had the new movie, the first Disney movie come out, which was The Force Awakens. It introduced a new trio of younger protagonists, Rey, Finn, and Poe, which I liked. When you saw it, they had Rey, they obviously wanted a strong female lead, and, Rey was great. The fact that she was female, the only complaints people had with her is that she seemed to be a Mary Sue type of character, where she seemed to have no flaws and, was able to do everything at the whim. And, I kind of just, you're able to explain it away by just saying, oh, she was chosen by the Force and the Force is what's guiding her. I didn't really mind it because she was a funny, relatable, charismatic character. She was quirky, so I loved her character. Didn't really care about her gender. And of course, she was paired up with Finn, who, was chosen because they wanted a black lead, which the fact that he was black was a non-factor. Finn was he played that role of this this defector, and he defects from the First Order in the movie and is put into this weird role, and the whole movie kicks off with his decision and what he wants to do. He plays that confused, he kind of reminds me of like Luke Skywalker from the first movie, just kind of confused and not sure where he's going, but ultimately is taking chances and taking risks and is growing as a character. Like I said, the fact that he was black was a complete non-factor. Anyone could relate to him. So, and Rey and Finn kind of played off each other pretty well in the movie. So far, everything seemed okay. I actually enjoyed Force Awakens. A lot of people had complaints and that it had feminist propaganda. Something that they did start, which will continue to the rest of the movies, is the First Order, of course, is all made up of white males. And, every villain from now on is going to be a white male in these movies.
Up until this point, I actually agree with pretty much every point that Revenge of the Dreamer has made. I think we both agree that Star Wars, while it did have a lead female character and a lead black character, there was no feminist propaganda or social justice warrior nonsense going on. They just so happened to want a strong female character. She fit the role very well. Sure, there's some criticisms on her character and that how she's almost perfect, but aside from that, the actress played the part very well and the character was enjoyed by many people. The same can be said for Finn. A lot of people think John Boyega was a great actor in the movie, and his character was very well developed and very interesting. The Dreamer also explains that the First Order is full of white guys and how that's supposed to be, sort of an SJW tactic. When really, if you look back at the old movies, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, there aren't that many minorities in the Empire. It was all white guys, and that was kind of done on purpose. The only, I guess you could say, diversity they had within the Empire was some of them had American accents, some of them had British accents. But the Dreamer also neglects that the First Order had a bunch of blacks, Asians, and Hispanic looking people as well. I can't show any screenshots or videos because I don't want to, get in trouble with copyright and stuff like that. You're going to have to take my word for it. But if you go back, watch Force Awakens, watch the scenes with the Star Killer base, you can see that there are in fact people of color or minorities in the First Order. And I think he has to understand that the reason why it was all white guys in the originals and mostly white guys in the new movies is because George Lucas kinda wanted the Empire to sort of symbolize Nazi Germany. I mean, for goodness sake, the fighters of the Empire are called stormtroopers. I mean, come on, that's a direct reference to the Nazi stormtroopers. You can't even be less obvious than that. Another thing to mention is while there aren't that many people of color or, non-whites for the rebels in the original Star Wars movies, there were plenty of aliens. And I think we have to understand that diversity for the rebellion has always been a thing in Star Wars. They always wanted to show that, there's sort of a unity between the different alien races.
Then we had Rogue One, which seemed to really quickly take things downhill. Now, when I say forced diversity is ruining movies, I often get simple-minded comments like, oh, you just don't like black people in your movies, or you don't like women in your movies or as your leads. It's like, no, let me explain. So, look at the cast of Rogue One. Now, they released this picture of the Rogue One cast pretty early, and when you look at it, it's obvious that they're trying to meet a diversity quota. And ultimately, how is that going to play out in the movie? Well, it doesn't help that this movie is probably one of the most unnecessary stories ever told. But to explain, we basically get a female lead again, which I don't have a problem with. The fact that she's female isn't what matters. But this time, what do we get instead of, in contrast with the movie before, with the quirky, spunky, likable Rey, we get this character who I don't even remember her name. She was stone-faced, unforgettable, monotone, just completely, like I said, completely, I don't even remember her arc. They try to play up something with her father and her destiny that she's trying to find the plans to the Death Star. But they completely just fucked up, but, we have a female lead. I guess that's all that matters, right? What doesn't matter is writing a good character, I guess. And then this is my whole point of the forced diversity. So when you look at the picture, you have this Chinese guy, Next to him, this native islander Samoan looking guy. Her sidekick in the movie was this Latino Hispanic dude. And then, of course, we had the Middle East companion as well, who is most famous, actually, for coming out and saying that if more Muslims were not cast in movies and TV shows in America, the lack of that will essentially cause them to join ISIS. Yeah, he said that. Well, guess what? Now the cast is so diverse, but they're completely unforgettable. The movie, like I said, I don't even remember these characters' names. The only people like me and most people in general remember from this movie were things referenced in the old trilogy, such as Darth Vader, Grand Moff Tarkin, Princess Leia, stormtroopers, AT-ATs and TIE fighters, all these iconic figures. That's the only thing people remember from this movie. Now you have this diverse cast. We got the Asian, we got the Hispanic dude, we got the Middle Eastern guy. We made sure we filled up those roles with those, with those check boxes, but we forgot to write actual characters. Like I said, I don't remember any of these characters. I don't care about them. I never cared about them in the movie, whatever was going to happen to them. I just didn't care. This is the problem with forced diversity. The fact that you have a group of people hiring a cast and trying to, make sure we fill a racial quota instead of actually worrying about writing good characters.
So there are a few things I disagree with what the Dreamer just said. For one, I think Rogue One was somewhat necessary in terms of the lore of Star Wars. You see, many people regard Star Wars: A New Hope as one of the best movies of all time, and I'm one of those people. I think it's a great movie. However, despite this movie being great, it had one fatal flaw. One of the worst plot holes I've ever heard in a movie, and that was the fact that in the movie, the Death Star had this little tiny hole at the top, and that hole only took 2 laser shots from an X-Wing in order to destroy the whole Death Star. And I'm thinking to myself, how can a structure so great with the funding of the Empire be destroyed by just 2 laser shots? And Rogue One actually explains why that happened. You see, the architect/engineer of the Death Star, as explained in Rogue One, actually wanted the Empire to eventually lose, and he hoped that one day someone would use his schematics to eventually destroy the Death Star, eventually leading to the end of the Empire. So I agree with the Dreamer when he said that the Rogue One movie had too many underdeveloped characters, but his reasoning is flawed in a sense that he says the reason why they're so underdeveloped is because they had too much diversity. There was a Hispanic looking character, an Arab looking character, an Asian looking character. You had all these characters with different races, and he thinks that's a major component why the movie was really bad. I disagree with him. The reason why the movie was not that great in terms of character development was because there were just too many characters to focus on. It didn't matter what race they were, or if they're an alien, or if they're human, or whatever. The issue was there are just too many characters, period. Okay, if the movie was all white characters or all Wookiee characters, it still wouldn't have been a great movie because you didn't have enough time to create a rapport with each character. And I actually like most of the characters from Rogue One. It's just I felt a little bit disappointed because I didn't feel that I got to know each character like I should have. And that's what happens when you have too many characters to focus on in a movie. By the way, I'm not sure if this is true. You're more than welcome to correct me on this, but I'm pretty sure racial quotas are illegal in the United States. I mean, we have affirmative action, but that's not exactly the same as a racial quota.
I don't need a character to be my race to relate to them. We have the original trilogy. I relate, the original Star Wars movie is probably one of my most favorite movie of all time. You know, you have Luke Skywalker, who plays that quintessential role of a person who just is looking for something bigger in their life. They feel lost, but they're looking forward in the future and have that optimism. You know, Luke Skywalker was the character of optimism. Every young boy, no matter what their race or even girls, related to him. The fact that these were all white people played no bearing on the international success of Star Wars. It was a story without race, without gender, without borders. It was a story that anyone can relate to. So now you have these new Star Wars movies. These executives and these producers are so worried about making sure we have strong female characters and, you know, diverse cast, instead of worrying about actually, rememberable characters. I don't remember any people. I don't remember any characters from Rogue One at all. And now this came all full circle with the new movie, The Last Jedi, where every male character was essentially portrayed as a hot-headed, emotional, and irrational male who needed to be reeled in by the cool, calm, and collected female leaders and generals. So in the middle of the movie, we have Poe, who is trying to stage a mutiny because the new purple-haired female general is not telling him the plan. He's made out to look like a douchebag, and basically she shuts down his mansplaining ass and puts him in line like the way of the female leader should. Oh yeah, and then we also get this tubby Asian female character in order to have more diverse female leads in the movie. Her role essentially serves no purpose. She's largely forgettable. For some reason, they separated Finn and Rey and stuck Finn with this character who only liked him because he was a hero, and they tried to give her some redemption story with her sister. That didn't really play out, and essentially the whole side mission, and even people who liked this movie, who love this movie, agree that the part with Rose and Finn, essentially there's a part where they go to this casino planet that is just filled with social justice propaganda, because you have this casino planet with rich aliens and 1%ers of the 1% who are, gambling and, spending and being all, rich and wealthy and evil. Rose comments how this is not all how it should be, and how these rich casino alien people, they're actually exploiting animals, and they're actual slave holders. They're having child slaves under their wing as well. Oh yeah, and they're also selling weapons to the First Order. The First Order is made up with all white males. Her character, their character, Finn is actually, I like Finn as a character. He suffers from being paired up with this largely unforgettable Asian character.
Alright, so I'll agree with you. If they took out Rose as a character from the movie, the whole story of the movie would not change, and there was no purpose to the character of Rose other than to have some sort of love interest for Finn. As to the whole casino thing being some sort of form of anti-capitalist propaganda, I don't really think so. I think that the casino is very Star Wars-like, and I think it's like almost the most Esli Cantina of The Last Jedi, although it's not a bar, it's a casino this time, and I find it pretty cool. Finn actually comments in the movie that it's a beautiful place. Obviously, he becomes disillusioned once he found out that the place uses slavery, but it's not necessarily anti-capitalist, it's just, a funny sort of theme, because you got like different aliens there, and you got all these games. So that's just a minor disagreement I have with the Dreamer here.
Rey is actually paired up with Luke Skywalker, who they make sure to portray as a grumpy old man, grumpy old white male, looks like a white grandpa you'll see, and who can't be bothered and is so annoyed by Rey's presence and doesn't want to do anything, and they just needed, all they needed left was for Luke Skywalker in the film to say, get off my lawn to Rey. Essentially, that's the summation of what his role served in this movie. Mark Hamill himself publicly came out and despised what they did with Luke Skywalker, the character. This now optimistic, free-spirited character who wanted to do the right thing and wanted to do good things was reduced and basically neutered. Mark Hamill expresses displeasure with that. I couldn't agree with him more.
You disagree with the way the movie took the direction of the Luke Skywalker character, and I think that's fine. Some people could argue that what they did with Luke Skywalker in the movie was great because they sort of evolved the character. You know, people can change over time, and I think, showing Luke Skywalker as this old, man that's like filled with guilt is actually a great evolution of his character. It happens in real life all the time. You start off this young, optimistic, sort of naive person, and then things happen to you, and that could have a negative effect in your personality. You also have to keep in mind that Luke Skywalker basically feels that he failed on his student. He failed to get him to see the light side. He attempted to actually kill his student Kylo Ren. And that, of course, led to Kylo Ren destroying the whole Jedi Temple and killing presumably most of the students of the Jedi Academy. I don't see how that's in any way, feminist propaganda, because they're just showing you how characters can change over time.
And then, of course, after the movie came out, you have tons of blogs came out and say that the Force is now feminist. Get over it, white males. Kathleen Kennedy even is on record by coming out and saying that they don't care about appealing to their white male audience anymore. She's on record for saying that. She's out there saying that the premiere you had all these female producers along with her, with the t-shirt saying the Force is feminist, basically trying to change Star Wars. And Star Wars was never about race or gender or female leads or anything like that, or different racial leads. It was never about that. It was about characters that could be replaced by any person's race. No matter what person's race, they can relate to the characters in Star Wars. That's why it was so huge. And now they're doing a complete 180. Instead of trying to write good characters, they're just making sure that they're hiring an Asian or a Latino or a Middle Eastern dude. All filling diversity quotas. And of course, the feminist propaganda, which I hate to say propaganda because it's just a movie, but it's so obvious when they're displaying like the female leaders just shutting down the hot-headed males. Kylo Ren, who's the villain, is this sappy white male who is emotional and hot-headed, and he's the bad guy. So you kind of see what they're trying to do with these movies. So that's kind of it. That's all my thoughts I kind of had for this, guys. I just wanted to make a video about this, talk about it, and essentially see what I'm seeing. Let me know down below if you agree with me or disagree with me. As always, I'd love to see your thoughts and comments.
To comment on your last point, I definitely agree. Star Wars is not about race or gender. It is a story about the hero's journey. I disagree with you on your views on Star Wars. I don't think it's feminist propaganda or SJW propaganda. Sure, there might be some people in the cast of Star Wars that want to implement those ideas into those movies, but I personally do not see them. If you want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to message me, to DM me on Twitter, and maybe we can schedule some sort of discussion, maybe even post it online if you like a live stream or something. And I just want to state again that I am a fan of your work. I like your videos. I agree with probably most of what you have to say. I just happen to disagree with you on this point. So, until then.